PayPal is hailed as the ultimate crown jewel of Silicon Valley innovation, but behind this multi-billion-dollar payment network lies a ruthless corporate empire built on betrayal, internal coups, and a dark infrastructure that routinely turns against its own loyal users. Long before it became a global financial utility handled by hundreds of millions of people, this company was less of a tech startup and more of a corporate war zone, where executive bloodlines were severed in secret boardroom mutinies. Today, the public knows the legendary names who graduated from its ranks, a network of powerful billionaires who shaped the modern internet. But what the public rarely sees is the trail of financial wreckage left in their wake, from small business owners destroyed by sudden 6-month asset freezes to a dystopian policy ecosystem that threatens to penalize everyday users thousands of dollars for expressing the wrong opinions. In this investigation, Founder Life pulls back the curtain on the mechanics of this financial giant. You will discover the unreleased truth behind the brutal psychological warfare that saw multiple chief executives overthrown by their closest allies, the hidden algorithmic traps that treat innocent consumers like global cybercriminals, and the real reason why this tech monopoly operates outside the rules of traditional banking. We are going to explore how an organization that once handed out free money to conquer the world became one of the most widely criticized platforms on the internet, shifting from a champion of financial freedom into a digital gatekeeper with a chokehold on your cash. The story of this network does not begin in a high-tech laboratory or a corporate boardroom, but in a chaotic race for survival between two neighboring offices that absolutely detested each other. If you want to understand how a small group of 20-somethings revolutionized global finance, you first have to look at the explosive friction that almost burned the entire tech industry to the ground before a single dollar could even be transferred. To truly understand the dark infrastructure of modern digital finance, we have to travel back to the summer of 1998 inside an air-conditioned lecture hall at Stanford University. A 23-year-old Ukrainian immigrant named Max Levchin walked into the room, not out of academic ambition, but simply to escape the oppressive California heat. Levchin had spent his early childhood living just 90 miles away from the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, a reality that forged a stark survivalist perspective on life. After moving to America, he taught himself how to write complex code on a primitive computer system, eventually migrating to Silicon Valley with dreams of launching a tech empire. On that particular sweltering afternoon, the man lecturing at the front of the hall was Peter Thiel, a brilliant and intensely calculated former hedge fund manager who was looking for elite technical talent to back. Levchin cornered Thiel after the lecture, pitching an ambitious concept for mobile device security. Thiel recognized the young programmer's raw capability and cut a check for $100,000, a seed investment that led to the creation of a company called FieldLink. But Thiel and Levchin quickly encountered a devastating structural problem. The market they were building for simply did not exist yet. They were developing security software for the Palm Pilot, which was the first popular handheld digital organizer. It was a sleek device for its time. But consumers were not looking for heavy security applications, and the parent company of the Palm Pilot had already partnered with another corporate provider. Realizing their original business model was entirely dead, the two founders retreated into emergency brainstorming sessions. They needed to pivot immediately or watch their investment capital completely evaporate. Instead of protecting data on handheld devices, they asked a much more disruptive question. What if they used the infrared ports on these digital organizers to allow users to beam actual money to one another across a room? The concept was a radical departure from traditional banking mechanics. In an era dominated by paper checks and slow physical cash transactions, the ability to wirelessly transfer funds seemed like pure science fiction. Rebranding their enterprise as Confinity, a corporate fusion of confidence and infinity, they named their proprietary money-beaming software PayPal. They recruited a highly competitive circle of young college acquaintances, establishing an intense, high-stress corporate culture where the average employee age was just 25. Seeking major venture funding, they convinced Nokia Ventures to back the idea with $4.5 million. To generate massive media coverage, the team staged a public relations stunt where Nokia executives beamed the venture capital directly into Peter Thiel's Palm Pilot in front of a live press audience. The technology was notoriously unreliable and buggy, forcing the engineering team to pull frantic all-nighters just to make sure the demonstration did not fail on stage. The transfer worked perfectly, capturing headlines across the tech world. But while the media celebrated this apparent breakthrough, a wealthy 27-year-old entrepreneur sitting in an office next door was watching the news broadcast with complete detachment. That man was Elon Musk, and his reaction to the money-beaming demonstration was blunt, calling it a fundamentally dumb idea that was doomed to fail. Musk had just exited his first internet venture, Zip2, walking away with a personal payout of $22 million. Unlike traditional founders who would diversify their wealth, Musk risked nearly his entire fortune on an incredibly dangerous objective. He wanted to completely overhaul the global financial system. Having spent time interning at a major banking institution, Musk had seen firsthand how legacy financial networks were paralyzed by slow, outdated technology and heavy regulatory bureaucracy. Most consumer transactions still relied on sending checks through the mail, a process that took days to clear. Musk envisioned a singular, digital superbank that would handle checking accounts, consumer loans, investments, insurance, stock trading, all inside a unified online platform. He named this digital banking ecosystem X.com. In late 1999, X.com set up its corporate headquarters at 394 University Avenue in Palo Alto. In a bizarre twist of geographic fate, the adjoining office suite on the exact same floor was occupied by Confinity. The two rival teams, both obsessed with dominating the future of digital transactions, were literally separated by a single wall. Employees from both companies constantly crossed paths in the building hallways, the parking lots, and local restaurants, completely aware that they were tracking parallel paths. Initially, neither company viewed the other as a direct threat. Confinity was strictly focused on building a niche money-beaming application for Palm Pilots, while X.com was attempting to build a massive financial superpower that could challenge traditional Wall Street institutions. Behind closed doors, both operations quietly believed their neighbors were on a path to absolute bankruptcy. Thiel and Lev Chin assumed Musk's digital bank would be crushed by federal regulators and the Glass-Steagall Act, which legally banned the merging of commercial banking and investment services. Musk, on the other hand, remained convinced that a payment network limited to Palm Pilot users was a trivial, dead-end product. But both corporate neighbors were completely wrong about the market, and a sudden, accidental realization was about to force them into a brutal, face-to-face conflict. Confinity's engineering team discovered that the money-beaming feature was too restrictive because most everyday consumers did not own a Palm Pilot. As a temporary backup plan, Max Levchin built a simple feature that allowed users to send money directly to any standard email address via the PayPal website. It was meant to be a minor safeguard, but within weeks, the internal data revealed an undeniable trend. Consumers were completely ignoring the Palm Pilot software and flooding the email system. Anyone with an internet connection could use it, entirely eliminating the need for specialized hardware. Right next door, X.com was experiencing the exact same consumer phenomenon. While Elon Musk was focused on building complex mutual funds and checking account structures, his users were only interested in the basic email payment feature. Musk openly mocked the simplicity of the tool, stating that transferring numbers inside a database was a minor technical task. But the consumer data did not lie. The market did not want a sophisticated digital superbank yet. It wanted a fast, frictionless way to send money via an email address. By the end of 1999, both Confinity and X.com abandoned their original corporate trajectories and pivoted entirely to focus on email transactions. The neighborhood peace was instantly shattered, marking the beginning of a ruthless market war where only one corporate entity could survive. By the beginning of 2000, the adrenaline-fueled marketing battle between Confinity and X.com was costing both companies massive amounts of capital every single day. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel both understood that digital transaction networks are governed by a brutal economic rule known as the network effect. In this environment, the largest network completely swallows the competition because users naturally migrate to the platform that connects them to the most people. To force this growth, both neighboring offices launched an incredibly aggressive customer acquisition campaign. PayPal offered $10 in cold hard cash to anyone who signed up for an account, plus an additional $10 for every friend they referred to the system. Not to be outdone, Musk raised the stakes at X.com, handing out $20 for new signups and $10 for referrals. This aggressive strategy created a spectacular viral marketing loop, but it also terrified the chief financial officers of both firms. PayPal was paying a 2% fee on every incoming credit card transaction, while charging its users absolutely nothing, a reality that caused the startup to lose roughly $100,000 every single day. It was a literal race to see who would run out of investor money last. Thiel and Levchin hoped to eventually recoup these losses by selling premium business accounts later on, but their cash reserves were depleting far too quickly. If PayPal attempted to stop the cash bonuses or introduce transaction fees, their entire user base would instantly run across the hallway to X.com. While both teams panicked over their burn rates, an unexpected economic lifeline appeared on the horizon. Power sellers on the massive auction website, eBay discovered that these email payment tools solved their biggest operational problem. At the time, eBay was a booming billion-dollar marketplace, but it lacked an integrated, reliable payment system. Buyers and sellers had to rely on slow paper checks or money orders sent through the mail. Suddenly, by simply typing a neighbor's email address into PayPal or X.com, eBay transactions could be cleared in less than 60 seconds. eBay sellers realized they could make extra money by embedding PayPal or X.com referral links directly into their auction listings. By January 2000, PayPal's user base exploded past 100,000 accounts, and the corporate battlefield shifted entirely to the eBay marketplace. Neither company had spent a single dollar on traditional advertising to attract these users, yet eBay sellers were adopting the tools organically because they made online commerce seamless. The two startups went all in on courting this new audience, constantly copying and upgrading each other's features in a desperate bid for dominance. The cultural animosity reached a boiling point. The PayPal engineering team celebrated milestones by eating a cake decorated with the words "Death to X.com," while Elon Musk sent urgent internal directives to his staff, stating that they needed to completely destroy PayPal. But behind the rapid user growth, both balance sheets were bleeding out. Musk's strategy relied on using the email tool as a loss leader, believing users would eventually buy highly profitable financial products like mutual funds or checking accounts. In reality, consumers completely ignored those features and stuck strictly to the free email system. PayPal was in an equally dangerous position, realizing they would go completely bankrupt before their long-term revenue model could materialize. The catastrophic trajectory caught the attention of Bill Harris, the seasoned financial software executive who had been brought in as the chief executive officer of X.com. Unlike Musk, who remained confident that his larger capital pool would allow him to outlast his rival, Harris believed that both companies were locked in a cycle of mutual economic destruction. He recognized that the online payment market was a winner-take-all arena, and continuing this proximity war would leave both startups dead. Harris quietly began advocating for a merger, setting up a secret meeting between the four most powerful men on the floor: Max Levchin, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and himself. The initial meeting was incredibly tense. Musk was deeply resistant to the concept of a partnership, fully believing X.com would eventually crush Confinity. When negotiations finally opened, Musk dropped an incredibly low-ball acquisition offer on the table, proposing that X.com purchase PayPal while giving the Confinity team a mere 8% of the combined entity. Insulted by the gesture, Thiel and Levchin walked out of the room almost immediately. The rejection forced the PayPal team to push harder for growth, a move that brought them even closer to the brink of total financial collapse. Yet, as PayPal's user base continued to expand, Musk was forced to return to the negotiating table with much more realistic terms, eventually proposing a fairer 55-45 split. The deal was nearly finalized until Musk made a casual comment to Levchin, boasting that PayPal was getting an absolute steal in the arrangement. Levchin was furious, walking away from the table once again and demanding an absolute 50-50 partnership. With the entire deal on the verge of collapsing over massive executive egos, Bill Harris dropped a massive corporate ultimatum. He informed Musk that if X.com did not merge with PayPal immediately on equal terms, he would resign as chief executive officer on the spot. At that exact moment, X.com was in the middle of a critical venture funding round. Having their chief executive abruptly quit would look completely disastrous to outside investors, potentially freezing their capital intake. Left with no choice, Musk backed down and agreed to the equal terms. In March 2000, the two bitter rivals officially merged into a single corporate entity under the name X.com. The combined business kept the PayPal name strictly for the email payment feature because consumers had developed a strong attachment to the brand. Musk, as the largest individual shareholder, took the role of chairman, while Harris retained his position as chief executive officer. Thiel was appointed senior vice president of finance, tasked with raising massive capital, and Levchin continued his role as chief technology officer. On paper, they had built an unassailable monopoly. By uniting their user bases, they could present a single, massive payment network to Wall Street investors. The merger allowed Peter Thiel to secure a historic $100 million in venture capital funding, closing the deal just days before the catastrophic dot-com bubble burst and wiped out hundreds of competing internet startups. By the end of March 2000, the company crossed the milestone of 1 million users, and its financial survival seemed completely guaranteed. But this apparent harmony was completely hollow underneath. The internal culture was a ticking time bomb, and the engineering teams were about to split into factions over a fundamental technological disagreement that would trigger the first bloody executive coup in the company's history. By the summer of 2000, the newly merged financial giant was operating at a scale the founders had never imagined, processing millions of dollars daily for a rapidly expanding global user base. Yet beneath this spectacular surface of hypergrowth, the internal corporate infrastructure was fractured by a bitter ideological and technological civil war. Elon Musk, serving as the chief executive officer, remained completely unyielding in his original quest to build a comprehensive digital superbank under the X.com brand. He viewed the email payment system, which everyone else loved, as merely a trivial utility designed to lure users into his broader ecosystem of mutual funds, checking accounts, and insurance products. This stance put him on a direct collision course with Max Levchin and Peter Thiel, who recognized that the PayPal brand had captured immense consumer trust and needed to be the absolute center of the business. This philosophical divide quickly manifested as a massive technical crisis that split the engineering department into two hostile camps. The original Confinity system, which powered the PayPal application, had been built from the ground up on Linux open-source architecture. Levchin and his engineering team were fiercely loyal to this setup, believing it was the only system stable and flexible enough to handle rapid code iterations and complex fraud detection. Musk, however, completely disagreed, declaring that an enterprise destined to scale into a global banking powerhouse needed to run on Microsoft Windows NT software. The disagreement was not just about operating systems, it was a battle for the absolute identity and future control of the technology. Musk argued that Microsoft provided superior enterprise-level support and stability for complex financial banking, while Levchin maintained that forcing a complete rewrite of the existing infrastructure would paralyze development for months and introduce catastrophic system vulnerabilities. The tension escalated to a point of absurdity, with Musk reportedly suggesting they settle the massive architectural debate through a physical arm wrestling match. Ultimately, using his authority as chief executive officer, Musk overrode the technical department and ordered the entire engineering staff to halt updates on the live site and begin rewriting the underlying code for a Windows environment, a project he designated as morale inside the office collapsed. Engineers who had spent years pulling all-nighters to build the Linux architecture watched their work being systematically discarded. They felt the migration was an absolute waste of time that distracted them from fixing critical system bugs and expanding consumer features. The internal rift widened further when Musk made his most controversial executive decision yet, moving to completely eradicate the PayPal brand name. He believed the name sounded weak and insisted the entire platform be rebranded as X-PayPal, with the ultimate goal of removing the word PayPal entirely from the consumer vocabulary. Musk ordered that the primary PayPal.com domain name be permanently redirected to X.com. To reinforce this new identity, he flooded the office with X-branded t-shirts, mugs, and promotional frisbees, effectively demanding that employees abandon their old corporate loyalties. The consumer reaction to this sudden rebranding was immediate and overwhelmingly negative. Focus groups and customer data revealed that users associated the letter X with adult websites rather than a secure, trustworthy financial depository. Prominent members of the team, including Reid Hoffman, openly warned that killing the PayPal brand would instantly destroy the hard-won trust of millions of eBay power sellers. Some engineers went so far as to launch a quiet internal resistance, deliberately stalling the website updates and stating they would rather be fired on the spot than assist in destroying the brand they had built. Watching the corporate value erode under this rigid management style, a group of high-level executives reached a definitive conclusion. For the company to survive, Elon Musk had to be stripped of his executive power. A secret network of rebels, led by Max Levchin, Peter Thiel, and Reid Hoffman, began orchestrating a highly coordinated internal coup. They knew that executing a boardroom mutiny against Musk would be incredibly difficult. He was the original founder of X.com, the largest individual shareholder, and a fiercely articulate leader who could easily sway board members if given the opportunity to defend himself. The conspirators needed a moment where Musk would be completely vulnerable and detached from communication. That exact opportunity arrived in September 2000, when Musk scheduled a long-delayed vacation to fly to a major sports event and celebrate his honeymoon with his wife, Justine. It was the one window of time where the chief executive officer would be physically trapped in the air, completely unreachable by phone or email. The moment Musk's flight took off from the runway, the rebels swung their plan into absolute motion. They gathered at a local restaurant down the street from the office to finalize a comprehensive vote of no confidence document to ensure the board of directors could not ignore their demands. Levchin and Hoffman systematically went through the office, gathering signatures from dozens of core employees and crucial software engineers who all agreed to submit their collective resignations if Musk was not immediately removed from leadership. Armed with this collective ultimatum, the rebels confronted the board of directors in an emergency session. They presented a detailed case against Musk's operational decisions, highlighting the severe delays caused by the forced Windows migration, the collapsing employee morale, and the immense brand damage caused by the X.com redirection. Because Musk had kept the board completely in the dark regarding the depth of the internal cultural warfare, the directors were deeply shocked by the presentation. Realizing that refusing the rebels would cause the immediate departure of the entire engineering team and destroy the operational capacity of the network, the board capitulated. When Musk landed at his destination and finally re-established communication, he was met with a devastating phone call informing him that a corporate mutiny had taken place in his absence. He cut his trip short and immediately boarded a flight back to Palo Alto, rushing into the office to confront the board and demand a reversal of the decision. But the administrative machinery had already turned. The board remained completely firm in their choice, officially sidelining Musk and restoring Peter Thiel as the new chief executive officer. Musk was profoundly blindsided and heartbroken by the betrayal, having invested almost his entire personal fortune and working exhausting hours to scale the platform. He expressed deep sadness over the fact that he was stripped of leadership without even being granted a formal opportunity to respond to the accusations. Thiel immediately assumed absolute control, executing a swift and decisive reversal of Musk's entire strategy. The controversial PayPal 2.0 Windows project was permanently cancelled, the live Linux architecture was restored, and the core PayPal brand name was immediately returned to the center of the website. The internal coup had successfully stabilized the product, but the executive warfare had left the corporate culture deeply fractured. More dangerously, while the executives were fighting for control of the boardroom, a massive financial crisis was silently compounding inside the network database, an explosive surge of global cyber fraud that threatened to wipe out their entire $100 million capital reserve before the year could end.